Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hey, guys, it's me, John Davis, and I am here on Spirit Cafe with my lovely co-host, Tamara Zoner. Good morning, Tamara. How are you?
Good morning, John. I'm wonderful. How are you?
Oh, look at you being all soft and easy this morning. I'm being all like, car sales pitch man. Anyway, so I am doing well. We're going to have an interesting guest today. He and I have some stuff in common, both martial artists and both spiritual as well. However, you found this gentleman through the lovely service called Podmatch.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you?
Us, actually.
He found us. Well, even better. So that's great. Makes it easier for us to actually get guests, right? So,
yeah, it does.
So let me say, do you want to anything you want to say before we bring this guy in?
No, I say let's bring him in and let him introduce himself.
There you go. John Goff. Why don't you come on in, John?
Hello. Thank you guys for having me on today.
It is an absolute pleasure to have you here, John. John, why don't you tell us a little bit about who John Goff is, and let's just dive into a conversation.
Okay, well, I'm 36 years old. I started studying martial arts when I was 4. I got introduced to the internal arts. When I say internal, dealing aspects of the breath or energy, what people might know as chi, ki, prana, mana, and the spirit, bioelectricity. There's so many names for the use of energy of the breath, or what science might say mind over matter. I started doing Tai Chi when I was 11. Then I went into Qigong when I was 12. And then just progressively, I just kept on finding every aspect of the internal arts with the hard arts that I could find. And then I got introduced to Neigong, and then to Reiki, and then from healing touch and deep meditation. Then I started training Tibetan monks, and I ended up traveling the world. I was fighting in Thailand and Burma. I was teaching in Cambodia. And then I got picked up by some agencies to teach in Berlin. And I've been doing healing work and teaching martial arts now for the past 10 years.
Wow. And where are you located?
I am Cedar City, Utah.
Utah. So I understand also you're about to take a trip to Peru, you said?
Yes. And I was invited. One of the Keros people in Peru had a vision when he was in the Andes Mountains in Cuzco, and literally found me, sent me a message, and he told me it's time to come home, and he invited me to a sacred ceremony known as the Hatun Carpe, and he wants me to become a Papa Maceros, and invited me to go to the initiation of his people to the Inca rites. So wow. I'm flying to Peru to go be initiated by a high priest.
That's awesome. That's exciting.
That's
exciting.
A very exciting life you've had. John's going to go off from where you left off forward, but I want to go back for a minute.
Go. Great.
Just say, first of all, I love how you describe all of that as the internal arts. I don't think I've ever heard it described that way. That's really, really beautiful. And then I need to know a little bit about your parents. Like, how did you get into all this stuff from such a young age?
Well, okay, I guess here we go. We're gonna go down the rabbit hole a little bit if you guys are ready for this.
Yeah.
My biological mother was actually like a pimped out whore.
Okay.
And then mama, so I went through a lot of a deep abuse as a child. Like physical, sexual, emotional, spiritual, like you name it. John Goff went through it. I was actually taken away from my biological mother by a federal SWAT team.
Wow.
And then I was put into foster care, and then and through foster care, literally every single foster parent in the California foster system I was abused by. So it was a lot of deep abuse growing up, and then my grandparents got me, and then as soon as they got me, they put me in martial arts. But here's sort of funny, even though they were the ones who put me in. They continued to also, beat me and abuse me up until I was almost 17 years old. So there was a lot of fear, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame growing up. And being within the culture I was raised in, I was put into the Mormon culture, all known as Latter-day Saints. And it was a really, really weird life. So I was growing, I was learning, and then they were very, very blind to things I was learning. So I had to keep on telling them, oh yeah, I believe in this and I do this. And then like they thought the whole idea of chi and energy and was wacky, but as long as I was out of their hair, and they pretty much let me do what I wanted to do, as long as they thought I was conforming. So it was really easy for me to pick up any book, anything on Buddhism, anything on the Tao, anything on Qi, anything on meditation, psychology. I'd go to the library, come home with a stack of books, and they didn't even ask me what I was reading. So he gave me an opportunity. I had to sort of covertly do a lot of stuff with them. When I started getting more vocal about it, then it was like, oh my God, you're getting into the stuff of the devil. The adversary's tricking you. It's a mimicry. You know, you're literally going to go to hell because you're practicing priestcraft and witchery.
Wow.
Well, one of the things that's interesting about that to me, and exactly something that I talk about all the time, is the fact that you were following what you felt to be right for you. You know, my mom used to say spirituality is a personal journey, and no matter what was going on around you, and no matter what the organized religion of Mormonism, Latter-day Saints was telling you, you were still following your own personal journey. And I think that that's really kind of beautiful. It's really beautiful that you found it, even as a child, you found it, especially after a trauma like you had, a traumatic childhood like you had. To find that very naturally is really kind of divinely guided, in my opinion.
Yes, I couldn't agree more, because it's like everything. Like when I would look in the mirror, we're talking about lenses and layers and the reflections of life for an individual towards other people. Everybody I would look at, I never felt at home. I never felt safe, and obviously like not even safe for my own household. And then there's the denial, and then it's like meeting these crossroads constantly. But I wasn't meeting the devil at the crossroads. I was meeting myself, but then I was kept on. It felt like I was being chained or whipped back the other direction. And then every time I'd come back in, and it wasn't until I was married, divorced, went through a lot of trauma there, that I was finally able to really feel like I was breathing. So all my training finally came to fruition, and I was able to really embrace everything that ever made me. I mean, so like by 25. I already had 10 black belts and 5 master ranks. It's like, if that's not to show people, like, like this is with my heart, my dedication, like, I don't know what was. And then even my travels, the people in Thailand fully embraced me. I wasn't the Farang, I was one of them. The people in China fully embraced me. I wasn't a Guilo, I was one of them. So anywhere I went to learn, to study, and to be, they accepted me. But then it's like now getting back into the West and really being open, like and not waiting for secret workshops or seminars, and just really showing people what I do. Like it has really been a ride to really just show up to where I am. And then last year, a friend of mine, Michelle, she introduced me to Dr. Travis Fox, who is her fiance, like her deep significant other. And if anybody doesn't know who Travis Fox is, he was one of the producers on The Secret. He was really sort of frustrated with the way it was shown, and then so he ended up filming, and he was one of the guest speakers on Beyond the Secret, which had his film last year too, and it's premiere in LA. So Dr. Fox is one of my best friends. Me and him and Eric Huey, who had one of the number one youth facilities in America. We all now work together with my friend Michelle, and we have our company, which is the Ultimate Business Quest, which is it's psychology, it's spiritualism, it's breath work, it's all of the things meeting together. So there's no longer separation of like East, and the West. It all comes together now.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the journey you're on, because it seems like you're not only you went through a whole bunch of stuff, but now you're also the right people are dropping in your path as well. You're jumping into it. I know one of the things you said about being included when you travel. I've been to over 30 countries around the world and have done spiritual and energy work everywhere I've gone, and I'm always amazed how when I was in India, when I was in Egypt, I was treated just beautifully and wonderfully. The only ones that actually ever give me any negative anything are organized Christian religions. Because even the Buddhist religions or the Buddhist temples or groups, they don't consider it a religion. It's more of a way of thought. But and the Hindus, they embrace it. They embrace it. When I was in India, they lined up around the block, to come do that work. So I think it's interesting that there is a definite disconnect between spirituality and organized Christian religions. What's your thought on that?
So for me, breaking over the LDS religion, but also being surrounded by many other cultures, even though like it is a dominating factor, especially where I live here in Utah. Anything that what they would feel goes away from Christ or a dominating power, like for the LDS Church is the priesthood, and I think it's sort of funny, for anybody who's ever studied it. And then I'm also high-ranking Freemason also. So, I've been around a lot of groups. I've studied a lot of people. And then it's like, do you guys not understand that your Melchizedek priesthood comes from Freemasons? And then I'm like, this comes from Freemasons. Joseph Smith was a high-ranking Freemason. And then I'm like, so when I look at distortions and anything that can be twisted or turned, it's like, so you guys say that this is wrong or evil or mess with, but yet you will call upon a power. And the second I even mentioned, okay, well, what about spirituality? Well, we are spiritual. Religion is spiritual. I said, well, have you ever considered your own breath, your own power? So you do something wrong, and you either get what they call disfellowshipped, or if it's bad enough, you get excommunicated, and then you are guilty and ashamed. You can't take a sacrament. You have to go to church. You can't speak. You can't pray. So anything that makes you, anything that that your mind, your spirit, your energy is completely stripped, because you can no longer rely, and they don't get to tell you. You still have a lot of power still. Everything's still within you. But now that you have messed up in their eyes, is no longer following that dogmatic prophecy and their commandments, you are weak, you are nothing, and you have to earn it all back. And then when you finally get back, you choose to come back, and you go through their hellacious process, now you're more locked in than ever. And like you do not understand what it means to be free. And yet they speak about Moses, people breaking away from like their slavery. You're more spiritual bondage than you've ever been, and then they want to tell you that's spirituality.
Mm. Mm.
So abusive.
I do want to say before we move on that for our own legal protections, these are John's opinions, and we are not going to be sued for calling a religion a cult. Thank you very much. Because the Mormons will go after you, man. The Mormons will go after you.
Oh.
Tamara, what's your thoughts on all this?
God, it just comes right back to how religion, and this is my opinion, is such a prison. It's such a prison. And to be re-traumatized again and again by something that's supposed to be, a guidance for our spirituality, for our greater goodness, for that, journey from the earthly body back into the heavenly plane, to be constantly traumatized and told you're wrong and shamed, especially for you, John Goff, as a child who was already being traumatized. It's like, how could you ever feel a sense of belonging in any of that? If anything, the belonging would have been, oh, well, I'm being traumatized again. This is what my life looks like. So for the strength, I always say, and I said this to our last guest too, the inner core strength in people like you to come through something so violent, to come through such a violent childhood and be doing this beautiful, intensely liberating spiritual work is such a gift to this whole world. And for anybody who was raised or is still feeling chained by their religion, just to know that it's not wrong to break free. It's not wrong to break free. it's not wrong to take what works for you and walk out the door with that. Not everything about Catholicism is bad, and that's where I was raised in. I think there are some great things about it, and not all of it. And so just to see your journey and to see the strength and to see you bringing light into the world through your work is so beautiful to me.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And I would also like to add to what Tamara said, and then we'll come back to you, John. The thing about modern organized Christian religions that really has, in my opinion, been so damaging is the fact that they aren't open to listen to anybody else. And in fact, they have very specifically made their doctrine be that everybody else is wrong. And, they're going to burn in hell if they don't, accept Jesus as their savior and all these things. And I got into a very tense conversation the other day on my YouTube channel with someone who a Jewish woman who was just really coming at me. And she was telling me how the New Testament was garbage and all fake, and the Torah is perfect and infallible. And and so I responded to her. I said, you believe the Torah is infallible? She said, yeah. So in the Torah, it says that you may beat your slave so long as he doesn't die because he's your property. Any flaws in that? and I never heard from her again. So, I mean, the fact that there are all these archaic rules and laws that are out there that are being treated as infallible, and what they do is they say, oh no, it's completely infallible. But then when you call them on it, they turn a blind eye to it because they can't justify it. So I see the big change, like you said, these religions, John, they have created an atmosphere of, you have to do it our way or it's the highway, pretty much. And the highway, and literally, in their opinion, it's the highway to hell. John, what's your thought?
Conforming to today's society, and and the way, especially the laws are. So here's one of my favorite ones: God is the same yesterday as he will be today, and he will be this tomorrow. Otherwise, he'll cease to be God. But yet, prophecies and commandments are constantly changing. So I scratch my head. I go, like, wait a minute. So if this was a law 100 years ago, this is the commandment 1,000 years ago. Why is it changed today? All of a sudden, blacks have the priesthood, and then I'm like, look, they couldn't have it. Like they have the mark, they're condemned. But now it was been prophesied that they can now receive it, and then something else changes. You can't have tattoos. Is that I'm like, but you can, depending on your culture. Wait a minute, if you can't have tattoos, then why is it okay if somebody have tattoos? Because if this is the universal law of God, shouldn't it apply to everybody? Oh, well, like they're raised Polynesian, so they're going to get their cultural tattoos, but you can't get marks on your body because it's your temple. And if you disgrace the temple of God, then you're disgracing yourself. I mean, so there's always more shifts. Temple ceremonies constantly changing. Well, the temple's supposed to be perfect. Why the temple ceremony change? Well, God said it's time to give differently. And I'm like, it's a change. So I'm looking at all these changes, and there's always some excuse because they need to have a backing, some scapegoat, some way to twist it to, let us see, God's still the same. He's just giving us new rules. It's like, well, then why do we have the old ones in the first place?
Right.
And like, because so I'm looking at all these constant shifts, and none of them make any sense. And after a while, it shook my head with confusion. And I was in a deep warrior mode for a long time. Like when I finally was able to really come out and I traveled and I thought and I taught, and especially when I got in the Filipino martial arts under Felix Valencia, my mind really started shifting. Is like, okay, like this stuff that we say that we have, what are we actually doing with it? I spent years like doing these forms and these really hard movements, but then I also had time softening and flowing and really understanding like me and the breath. But then when I had a chance to really put it together, I actually looked at my comparison with religion, and I'm like, oh wow, here's my epiphany. Here's my moment of grace. I was still trying to break down the walls of the church or the temple, when all I had to do was walk around it.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Bruce Lee was always talked about being like water and flowing around and moving along. And I agree with you 100%. The interesting thing that I'm finding nowadays is that modern religion has been losing its attendance. Like organized religions have been losing their flocks for the longest time, because people, I truly believe, we're coming into a time of enlightenment where people are starting to feel the truth within rather than look for it without. And I think that that's a massive shift. Do you see a change in society?
I see a big one, especially now that plant medicine is really getting decriminalized or legalized in a lot of areas. I've saw ayahuasca more times than I can count. I have a lot of ayahuasca friends. I've been in a lot of deep ceremonies with natives, and that's really, really been helping for people, who, because of religion, didn't want anybody to know that they were there, but trying to find a way to wake up. And this is what me and some of my friends express, especially with what we do. I can show off. I can totally show you the cool stuff, that you feel some great things, but in the end, you have to receive it. And these people are trying to find something to receive, because people, whether they want to admit it or not, they're not looking for somebody else to wake them up. They've been there, they've done that. They're wanting a path to wake themselves up. So that's something we try to do. Is it's like, look, I don't do anything for you. I can facilitate, but whatever you choose, you're waking yourself up. And all we're doing is walking alongside you on this journey, and trying to give you the best that we can, showing up for you by showing up for ourselves, so you can really show up for yourself. So there is a shift, there is a wake up. People are wondering, why did that priesthood session work? That healing didn't work. They gave me a blessing. Why am I still sick? Why am I still diseased? Why did I just go to John Goff or somebody else? And then they did this crazy Qigong, Reiki, Tao Te Chi thing on me. And I'm twitching, I'm crying. And I'm like, well, you just had an SER, known as, a somato-emotional release, or an ER, an energy release or emotional release. And now you're twitching on the table, and your joints are cracking, and you're crying and bawling. And then you get up, and guess what? Wow, my back pain's gone. Oh my God, I just remembered that daddy raped me as a child. Mom did this, or something else happened. And that's why I was drinking. That's why I was on drugs. That's why I'm depressed. That's why I have anxiety. Thank you. And I always respond to, you're welcome, but thank yourself first. Thank yourself for receiving, for allowing it to flow. I can't just push it in. If I were to give some type of healing and they're not ready for it, there's, in my opinion, because I watched it and I had the feelings of it, there's a karmic repercussion if I force somebody into healing. So if I feel an area and I'm doing some work and I'm moving, I'm touching, and it's like ding, 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 it's just like, okay, move on. That area, they're not ready for it yet. They need for them to hold on to it. And then I move on to somewhere else, and then it shifts. And I go back. Maybe a bottom area need this shift. Whether you want to describe the chakras or energy and meridians or the nadis, on all the words for these things in the body. But then sometimes they're really ready to move in. But when they move in, I will remind them, hey, whatever you may start to feel, I'm not going to, anything that's psychosomatic. But if you do start to have experience, I want you to speak for me. What do you hear? What do you see with eyes closed or open? And what are you feeling? So now it's all on them to describe. My mental chatter is going down. Your hands are getting really, really hot. Oh, it feels like a little tingly, like almost like a static shock electricity. And or maybe it's magnetism. Sometimes it's all of it, and sometimes it's nothing. And they're like, I don't feel anything, but I'm so peaceful. This is the first time I felt peace in a long time. And then I'll just have them breathe. Do you know what it means to breathe? Yeah, I'm breathing right now. I said, no, you're breathing because your system will automatically make you breathe. Do you know what it means to intentionally breathe and breathe with a purpose? Are you breathing a purpose in your relationships? Are you breathing a purpose in your business? What are you breathing for? And is it with intent? And when is the last time you just sat down all by yourself, not in a session with me, and simply just sat down, like, right, I'm in this chair, and simply took a really intentional breath through your nose and just hold it. Just feel, is there tension? Is there fear? You feel anything in the body? And just breathe it out and let yourself be. And through all these experiences, from the medicine to the healing work to them trying to understand, why they feel they have to hide what they're doing. But after it's done, this is 9 out of 10. So I'm doing pretty good with the people that I'm working with. People get up, they're done with their religion, they're done with their books, but now here's the hard part. And this means with waking up and why, when it comes to consciousness and humanity and religion, the struggle is a lot of people don't know how to integrate. And that's part of the fallback of why they might go back to the thing they're trying to run away from. There isn't a lot of books written on things. I mean, yes, you got Terence McKenna, you got Alan Watts, you got all these amazing men, these philosophers, but half of them are dead. They're not around, and people don't know how to interpret those books because they have in the subconscious mind these indoctrinated thoughts that still clash with what they're trying to learn. So consciousness, awakening, and integration, these awakenings would happen quicker, but we need more people willing to come step forward to show up for other people and help them integrate. It's like people doing ayahuasca. It's like, all right, guys, well, you might have done a 1-day sit or 3-day sit, or you might even sat for a week, depending on who you go to or country you go to. But then you go home, and now the DMT is released through the body. You have all these experiences, these visuals, these traumatic releases, but you don't know what the hell you saw, and you're trying to message or type back to the facilitator who held the container or the circle. They might get back to you, but a lot of these people do it for a living or they travel. We need integration. And that integration can really start if we start, and this is what I do. I can't speak to everybody else because not everybody does it. I give people access to me. It's just like, look, you just paid me $300, you just paid me $5,000. It doesn't matter the price for me if you need help integrating, but I also need from me to you. If you want to wake up, keep on feeling this wake up and not turn back and go back to where you're running from, this has to be an everyday reflective practice. What do you want? And no longer going back what I don't want, because the mind doesn't hear don't. The mind hears do. I don't want this. I do want this. Man, I don't want to do this ever again. But yet you will go do an hour later, or you might do it the next day. So being positioned to understand ourselves through the breath, intentional consciousness, that's going to be to continue to wake up and help people continue to move forward. But they have to start themselves and really keep that focus. It might be a month. Some people might do it in a day. It might be 10 years down the road of a continual struggle, but that struggle is going to be better than what they were in.
Yeah. That was powerful. I love that integration piece because I think you're right. It's so often just looked over, especially in those like big day or weekend events. It's just like, okay, you've done all this work, now go journal, bye-bye. And it is a process that doesn't just take a couple of days or a week. It could take months. It could take a whole year for you to fully integrate what you've come through. I also love the way that you approach with such respect for both the process that you're doing and the individual, and giving them complete ownership and giving them the their permission to use their own voice, which is lacking in religion, organized religion, because you're like, this is your experience. I'm facilitating, but you're the one doing it. You're the one being it. And so I'm just going to be your guide here. And then after it's finished, whatever it is, integrate, like take time with it. I have done ayahuasca a few times, and I'll never do it again. And well, I say never, but probably never. Because I don't like needing a substance to meet myself. Right. And so, and I do so much work, but most people are seeking this like quick, oh, I'm going to become aware now. I'm going to have that spiritual experience, and then forevermore, I'll just be all love. And that's not really what it is. Oftentimes we have these healing experiences that bring up more and more of the crap that we've, built up in our lifetimes. And it's so important that they have a resource for that integration. So when are you writing your book about integration? I'm wondering, John.
I've been in the process now for the past year, writing about spirituality, religion, martial arts, and healing work now. It might accumulate sort of like a healing study and teaching Also a biography on myself of my experiences with methods that I've used and other people have still currently use with me. So it might be done in 4 months, it might be done in 6 months, but it's really processing every client, people who have been more than willing to sign waivers for me. They allow me to share their experience and what they've gone through and show the commonality from everybody, although it's all different. Sarah, now I worked on a little over 8,000 people now. So I have a high number of people I've worked on. And so about 100 have given me permission. And so many of the people around the globe, I wouldn't even know how to get a hold of them. But that's totally not the point. There's a common factor. So while one person experienced one thing, another person experienced another, the people who have still had the experience, that experience has been, wow, I never knew what something could feel like within. Yes, I felt somebody at your hands, but what was stirring in them, that's the common theme. What was stirring in me as I'm speaking with somebody else was so magnificent. I finally understand what it means to call, spirit or energy in this vessel, because there was no words, there was no me getting up and looking at you guys a little more intense real quick. And this happened, and I had this feeling, and then God came to me, or the Holy Spirit spoke, and then all these people are, they're crying, they got all emotional. I mean, there's a moment in one of my meetings, I went, I'm like, where can I find it? I ordered, and I'm like, I literally, like the Bible of Satan, okay? I went, I tried to find something to get people to wake up a little bit. I'm like, wow, like I didn't understand a lot of this psychological. So I went to a meeting. I'll make this short. I opened it up. I hit it between a different religious book, but I put the show on, and this is the show. So they're seeing this. Not going to name, out of respect for people who might see this, a certain religious book, but I had a different book between it. And I'm like, brothers and sisters, and I'm reading it. I wasn't trying to create a mockery. I wanted to make a point to help people wake up, and it impacted. And I was reading alternative text, different messages, and oh my God, all the brothers and sisters who were in the chapel, they were crying, and they're like, "Oh, Brother Goff," and they're really feeling the spirit. And then I closed it for a minute, and I'm like, brother and sister, would you agree that the holy house, that the devil cannot enter the holy places, that this place is protected by the words of evil? Is that I'm like, this is a sanctuary, a place of safety, that that we agree that the Holy Spirit speaks through us, is that and it can only touch us, and everything we feel is da 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 da, and everybody's yes, yes, yes. Then I wipe my tears. Brothers and sisters, everything I just read to you came from the Bible of Satan. Their faces. So I have to ask you guys, what were you feeling? Was it the tears? Was it the vibrations? Was it the hypnotic state you guys put yourself in? Because I want to know what everybody just felt, because unless somebody wants to use an excuse that this is a test of your faith and God just broke rules again, that he let Satan enter the whole house, which that's totally forbidden. What did you just feel? Did you feel truth from it? Is the Holy Spirit universal? Or I need help here, because everything I just did had nothing to do, and it would be total contradiction. And if you guys knew what I was reading, I would be told it's a mimicry, it's a lie, the adversary is going to get me. But yet it put all of you in tears, and you just had what you perceived as a divine spiritual experience, but it was not the words of Christ, it was not the words of God. This is literally the words written by a person who worships the devil, which I don't even believe in. Mm-hmm. So that was a struggle for me. And then that was also another thing to push me further into the work I do now. I don't condemn, I don't create judgment. I still have Catholic friends. I still have friends who are still in the LDS church. I have Buddhist friends. I even have some, and this gives a lot of people crap on all sides. I have friends who are members of Islam. But all the people I still associate with, it's that loving divine brotherhood I want to give as family. I'm still going to give you an extension. I don't care what you believe. This is all I ask for me. You don't push what you believe on me. I don't see you hurt yourself. I don't see you hurt your family, because not everybody does. And that's the part, that what it's hard for me. And it took me a while to integrate myself, that even though I disagree with what they're doing, and that if they're good people and they're trying to use those teachings, and there are great teachings still in a lot of religious texts, how they use it and how they're still showing up within it, that's what matters to me. But when I watch it hurt and when I watch it control, that's the time when I will either open my mouth or I have to walk the direction, because I can't have inflicting pain, because I don't want anything to make me feel the trauma again. Mm-hmm. So even though I've healed from a lot of it, and those walls are broken down, I don't want to be in position or have anybody else in position to be hurt, to be in pain, to no longer be able to use their voice. So I give all my friends a place of comfort and safety. And we've been able to do this, what we're doing right now. We sat down together and I'm like, okay, I know you believe this, but we're going to talk about this. This is not a debate. Instead of working on belief or hope or faith, let's work on facts. How old's the earth? Well, I said, well, then I'm like, why are some of the things that people have found, carbon dating and more, and dates which duplicate to ours, which we can actually check, 350 to 400,000 years old. How could what you tell me be correct if these are facts, if we're not basing it upon faith? And then if you take a breath in and you breathe in and out, I'm not saying anything, and I'll run through a breath session. In, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. And guess what? Now, whoa, what's happening? And I'm like, hey, there's no spells being cast here. There's nothing happening. Just keep on breathing if you're ready for it. Something's happening. You're having this release, and that's all you. I didn't even do any healing work. Your breathing is giving you something that nobody on earth can give you but you. Mm-hmm. The religion's not going to give it to you. No book's going to give it to you. And then once we start to return to the breath, we start having that power back to yourself. Now people realize, hey, I can sense other people's feelings. Hey, maybe I want to do healing work. Or, oh my God, this job I was doing is not the job I wanted to do. And they have a chance because now they remember how to breathe. Whether you want to say they're centered, they're aligned, they're grounded. There's so many words that we all use. It could be all of it, whatever. But now they're back to themselves and they have a chance to finally be. Doesn't matter if you're 20 years old, if you're 70 years old, it's never too late to start remembering who you are.
Oh, I love that. That's so true. That's just like, it's all about, I believe that this journey in this physical form is all about that coming home to yourself and really seeking to understand your own knowledge and awareness on a level that isn't necessarily earthly. John Davis, what do you feel about that? And there's another truth we have to express as well, which is that we're coming to our time.
Okay. So. Okay. That's good that you said that, because you know that I go off on tangents. So I just want to unpack a couple things real quick, and then I'll jump out of here. Number one, everything that you're talking about healing is exactly what a guy that I used to know a couple thousand years ago taught. And I love the whole concept of you go with healing intention, but unless they take the healing themselves, that's in the Bible itself. It actually says that they avoided the city of Beth Shean because Jesus couldn't heal people there because they knew Joseph the carpenter, so they couldn't put faith in Jesus as a healer. So I personally believe healing is. There is no such thing as a healer. There's only people who coming there with loving intention of healing, and until the person takes the belief and faith on it. And lastly, very quickly, I'm going to tell just a very short story about, and I mean a very short story, Jim Carrey talking to Richard Pryor in a parking lot. And Jim Carrey and he were sharing a joint, and they were smoking a joint. And Richard Pryor said to him, "Be very careful with that." And he said, "Why?" He says, "Because it took me to cocaine, and with cocaine, I don't know whether it was the cocaine that was funny or me. And so when I hear people talking about psychedelics and ayahuasca, I automatically say you're astray from the path, because the reality of it is you can do everything without that stuff, but adding that stuff in does two things. It sets you up for an addictive behavior where you think the only way to spirit is through that stuff. It also sets you up for a situation where you begin to doubt whether that experience you had is real or not, because you were using a substance that made it seem separate. Other than that, I loved everything you said, John. I think you're right on point with all of it. And I think that as anybody who follows anything that I teach on my channel, I'm all about the breathing and the back into the breath, because I think the connection to source is right at the bottom of an exhale. So, and there you go. So take us out of here, Tamara's owner.
All right. Well, John Goff, where can people find you if they're listening to this and they're like, I want to know more about him, or maybe I want to work with him? Where would you direct them to?
I would direct them to my Facebook page, my business page. It's just literally called The Experience. My Instagram is Marshall, MARTIAL _mystic. And then I have John Goff _ experience. So if they want to find me on Instagram that way, that's my healing work. And then myquestapp.com. That's also where me, Travis Fox, Michelle Eberhard, and Aaron Huey have the Ultimate Business Quest for people who want to be entrepreneurs, understand, psychology, spirituality, business, what it means to start healing and working through your own trauma and business to be able to be successful and to start stepping into a path that people can find us there. Our app, it's within on Google. It's in the App Store. So if people want to check us out, they can look through us there too, and just as a whole. And for me, I'm usually open to most people. People could go ahead and even message me on my private Facebook account, and I usually respond because I'm always looking for business promotion and just to have a good conversation to see if what I have to offer is right for them.
Awesome. And John, I'm sure we'll put that in all of the show notes so people will be able to click a link wherever they're listening. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. It's fascinating and compelling and heads right back to light. So thank you to our listeners for sharing this time with us. We love to hear your thoughts. So please write them down. Let us know. Give us 5 stars and we'll give you a high five. And we will talk to you again next week. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Leave all comments and suggestions on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page.